Hey everybody, it's Tony George with Tony's Time. Week 1 NFL, my honor, my privilege. I'm excited. Doing my first side-by-side with, of course, Arun, Shiva, who, by the way, better known as Indian Cowboy, one of the big shots over at DocSports.com, and a guy I got to spend a little time with in Philadelphia last year when I first met him, and a fantastic individual. And nonetheless, Arun, boy, week 1 NFL's here, buddy.
Yeah, I know, man. It's exciting. I'm glad to see football happen. It's good for the country. It's good for the soul. So
Yeah,
it's
and
good
hopefully
to,
good.
yeah, it's good
Yeah, hopefully
to
good for
get
the
some football.
pocketbook as well over at Docs. Last night, I guess we opened up the season with the Kansas City Chiefs doing something that I never do. I don't put out in week 1 nine and a half point favorites, especially a returning Super Bowl champion against a team that they waxed by double digits the year before. But last night, Kansas City proved to be all that and then some. And Arun, just your thoughts on that game. The one thing I took away from it was, Houston, despite getting rid of Hopkins, has a pretty potent offense. Deshaun Watson is a stud quarterback, but I thought Kansas City's defense played well, which is a red flag for anybody playing Kansas City. And I also thought that the running back that they got from LSU performed at an extremely high level. You can maybe call him Kareem Hunt Jr., whatever, but he adds that dynamic back into Kansas City's offense that they lacked last year. And even though they lacked that dynamic dual threat running back, they won a Super Bowl. So that's kind of bad news for everybody, that's got to play Kansas City this year.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to show like how potent this KC offense is. They didn't score any points in the first quarter again, and then they dropped 17 immediately in the next quarter. They make really good adjustments, and I guess that windbreaker that Andy Reid is wearing isn't affecting his adjustment calls. He's such a great. You know what's crazy about this team, Tony, is Mahomes only passed for like 200 yards.
Yeah.
So if he can pass for 200 yards and they're thumping teams by just doing that, that means they don't have to show as much for the next game as far as their game plan or some new plays they're running and stuff. And that defense, man, I mean, people forget that when they needed that defense to show up against the Niners in the Super Bowl, that defense held them basically scoreless in the fourth. So this defense is really going under the radar. And I think you have to give Andy Reid and their defensive coordinators a lot of credit, because people always talk about their offense, but if they can start winning ball games by 200 yards passing, and that LSU, I'm an Alabama guy, but it's nice to see the SEC doing well. And on draft day, they asked Mahomes who they should get. He was like, get that running back out of LSU, and he wanted them to get that running back. So you got to give. And the other thing is the Chiefs only had one penalty for 5 yards. So this is a very disciplined team. They're able to be highly efficient. And they're able to control the ball. They held the ball for 10 minutes longer than Houston too. They're just a smart team,
Yeah, and that's the one thing about it. Last year, their time of possession was just, not good. The results were good, but now when they're able to eat clock and grind you out and have to keep defenses honest, and go put them back in the zone so they're available to stop the run, that's going to give Mahomes, Kelsey, Watkins, all those guys.
They had one drive that was like 19 plays.
Yeah.
I mean, you're resting your defense forever. So,
yeah, they're going to be dangerous for sure. And of course, being from Kansas City and being a huge Chiefs fan, I like to stay away from them if I can, so I can enjoy at least one particular game as a fan and not as a handicapper, which makes it all business. And Mrs. George gets mad at me, if I take a team against them. So I try and keep the peace at home. But nonetheless, coming up here on Sunday, there's been some crazy line movements. And I guess the one thing that I want to talk about is that I'm just going to talk about some steam that's going on out here in Las Vegas and get your thoughts on it. And one of the games that really got steamed out here, speaking of Las Vegas, was Las Vegas and Carolina. Las Vegas opened up at a pick'em. And, of course, Las Vegas / Oakland, let's just go back to last year, is not a team that you're ever comfortable laying points with on the road. And now you take a look at what they're doing here against Carolina. And, of course, Carolina, and I will tell you right now, this is a circa contest pick for me. I did take the Raiders, and the reason I took them is we've had kind of a COVID-fractured season in terms of leading up to the regular season game one. No preseason, no OTAs. You throw all that in the mix. On top of Ron Rivera is gone. You've got a college coach in there and Matt Rule, who has spent some time in the NFL. So, he's not popping his cherry on this game being an NFL coach. He spent some time as a coordinator and a coach in the NFL. But at the end of the day, also a brand new quarterback, all new schemes, all new coaching staff, Arun, and you lost the heart and soul and maybe the best linebacker in the NFL and Luke Kuechly gone. That's a lot to ask for them to open up with a win against a Las Vegas team that we know has a lot of talent. They've drafted, they free agent well. That talent has not equated to wins on the field. But you got to give the edge to Gruden here, in my mind, a little bit. Your thoughts on this line move?
Well, first I want to say is I think the pickup of Mariota was really smart because that puts a little fire under Carr, saying that, look, the backup that they had before was not as nearly as competent as Mariota is. And Mariota has something to prove as well, now that he's lost, obviously, his job from Tennessee. And, so I think that will make Carr probably more efficient. And I think any hiccups at all, Gruden will give the hook. Rule is actually a really good coach from Baylor, and I think they're going to be really good in the future. But I think you're right. I think this team I think he talked about how young his team is. He's got a bunch of rookies that are playing this game. And I think Vegas is just at a different mindset. Like they want to contend, whereas Carolina just wants to be not getting blown out, So, McCaffrey was my first pick in my fantasy draft, obviously. I think he's still going to have a great year, but I'm not completely sold on Teddy, and Teddy doesn't have the greatest receiving core either. And I think this defense, they're going to be really well prepped, which is what he's known for. Like in Baylor, I've read some story that he works, 70, 80 hours a week. He chugs Mountain Dew like there's no tomorrow. I mean, this guy just works around the clock. However, man, that receiving core, Brian Edwards, he's like the biggest. People don't know about him, but I'm telling you, Tony, this kid's a baller from South Carolina.
Yeah.
He might even and Alabama drafted Henry Ruggs in that draft, and he looks like he's going to be the starting, even more than Renfro, even more than Ruggs. This guy, no one knows about Brian Edwards completely yet either. He's going to be so good. He's going to be their primary receiver. And I think that receiving core between Edwards and Renfro and Waller, their tight end, they have so much skill talent. Not to mention Josh Jacobs is a thumper, And I think this is a game Vegas really believes that they can legit contend, and they were pretty good last year and they didn't have all the skill positions that they have this year. They're just more seasoned. They're just, this looks like one of those games that it'll be kind of close, but then you'll see Vegas probably winning by something like 30 to 17, 30 to 14 kind of feel to the game.
Yeah, and I think Vegas is going to contend for second place in the AFC West. I don't think anybody's going to knock off Kansas City. Denver just lost, their best defensive player, and they're still breaking in Drew Lock. And, of course, the Chargers are always a work in progress. They like to play good defense and run the football, and that's not going to work out very well against teams like Kansas City. And I think, I think the Raiders can give both those, actually all three of those teams a ball game. I mean, I don't think they're just going to go lay down because Kansas City's Kansas City. And I think Gruden is a good football coach. Another game of interest here, and of course down in your neck of the woods, the heart of Dixie down in Alabama and everything, you got the Atlanta Falcons, Arun, at home, catching 2.5 points. And of course, this is a team last year that came on extremely strong at the end of the season, saved Quinn's job. Obviously, Matty Ice Ryan is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Everybody likes him on their fantasy team. They got a trio of wide receivers. They got a good running game, and I've never trusted Seattle a whole lot on the road here. Of course, Seattle has the best player on the field, Russell Wilson. Kind of a tough call here, but I sniffed around this home dog for quite a while this week before I put my picks up.
Yeah, what's interesting is, and there's the over under for the Falcons was only 7.5. So that just shows you how much Vegas thinks about Atlanta's chances. They don't like Atlanta's chances at all, and they started 1-7, but they did win their last four. You have an owner that really believes in Dan Quinn, and Dan Quinn has actually covered against Seattle the last 4 times he's played them because he used to be the DC for for Pete Carroll. So they have a strong relationship. These guys really love playing for Dan Quinn. And I am a Falcons fan. I'm a through and through Falcons fan from the Dirty Bird days to the Chris Chandler, Andre Rison days, the Jesse Tuggle days when they weren't even that good.
Whoa.
But have you noticed the total on this game? It's 49. It's surprisingly high, right? So in a way, they're expecting the dog to do well, because I've always believed that if the underdog is to do well, the game will go over the total. Kind of an active dog over theory, as I call it. So if you expect the dog to do well, the cup will spill over, because they're going to do better than expectations. So I think Atlanta's going to catch the lead early. I think Atlanta's going to push Russell Wilson, and then I think Russell Wilson's going to come back in the second half. But I do think this game probably goes over. Do I trust the Falcons to finish? I don't know. I don't trust either of these teams. But I'll tell you this: if Atlanta can win their first game, for a team that has and Keanu is healthy now, their linebacking core. Dan Quinn is supposed to be calling the defensive plays this year, so he's not going to give it to anybody else. I'm sure he has to, or else he'll lose his job for sure. If this team doesn't make the playoffs this year, I don't see them coming back, that coaching staff. So, but I think it's going to be a higher scoring game than people think.
There you go, folks. And, of course, be sure and utilize, you'll see that little tab up there at the top of the screen here. Jump on board this weekend for a football package. We're giving you a free $60 over at DocSports.com. Ton of free plays. Both Arun and I and a handful of others, 4 or 5 of us, do daily free pick videos. So be sure and get over to Docs this weekend and get yourself lined up. Curious to know your thoughts on the LA Chargers and Cincinnati Bengals game. The Bengals open up a new era with I know you're an SEC guy, an SEC quarterback. If he has half the debut that the running back did for Kansas City last night, they might be a live dog in this game. But you got the Chargers going to be a heavy dose of running the football, zone run read football from Anthony Lynn, with not to put a lot of pressure on Tyrod Taylor, and of course a vicious defense. Although they lost one of their best players to injury in camp, still a very strong defense with a very strong pass rush. And I'm sure that defensive coordinator wants to give this young rookie a lot of different looks to confuse him and make him force balls into coverage that he's not used to. As much as strong as the SEC is in college football, it ain't the NFL. This is an interesting game to me. Chargers on the road, laying 3 here, Arun.
Yeah, what's interesting is, and I'm going to tell you a name here who's going to be the fantasy sleeper probably of the year, and that's AJ Green. He didn't have any stats last year, so he's not showing up in any rankings this year. And I don't think Ross is going to suit up for this game, but this guy's going to ball out. So Burrow, AJ Green was saying that Burrow is going to be a great quarterback for the next 15 years. He has all the talent in the world. He's a winner. The only thing is Mixon might not play this game because he's a little banged up. So their running game, I don't know. But I like the Chargers here. I just think that Herbert is in the wings too, so Tyrod needs to come through. Anthony Lynn's job is not on the line, but another bad year could not look so great. Mike Williams is questionable too. But at the end of the day, I think that defense that you talked about is the difference. The Bengals defense is okay, but that Chargers defense is good. Tyrod Taylor, he's been around forever. He's a good quality veteran. And I think that, for as good as Burrow is, I think that the running game and the defense is going to make this the difference. It's probably going to be an ugly game, but I can see like a 4 to 6 point win for the Chargers.
There you go, folks. I would tend to agree. I think Zach Taylor, I'm a Nebraska guy. He played quarterback for us under Bill Callahan. We went and got him from Arizona State on a transfer. He played his senior year there and has got a great football mind. And he just, got handed a flaming turd, last year in his first year, and everybody in the division was just really good. But nonetheless, I think they're going to have a pretty decent year this year. And
Tony,
I think they're going to.
I know I'm going off script here. I know we're going off script, but I got to ask you, man, what do you think about Nebraska maybe wanting to leave the Big Ten? What are your thoughts about? I know you're a big Cornhusker guy and a big Nebraska guy, and
well,
so I've been meaning to
when
ask you, so.
I grew up in a small. My wife and I are both from small towns in Nebraska, about an hour south of Lincoln, and then I went to school in Lincoln. I'm an alumni. Spent some time in the athletic department there, and then did sports radio in Lincoln for 15 years. Had a daily talk show there with Bill Dolman and interviewed I was close to the program, and I remember when they left the Big 12, Tom Osborne was still athletic director, and he said, "We are not going to be the University of Texas in Lincoln." They were upset that Texas got their own TV contract with ESPN and wouldn't share the money. There was a lot of politics involved. The Big Ten, it was a big cash grab for them. But still to this day, just thinking, it's hard to get fired up playing Iowa and Iowa City. I used to get fired up playing Oklahoma down in Norman. Texas A&M down in College Station. K-State down in Manhattan making the road trip. And I think Nebraska is a team I don't like them in the Big Ten, personally. I think their style of football is much more conducive to Big 12 play. Wide open Scott Frost offense, Big Ten's more black and blue, pro style. I'm going to leave Ohio State out of the mix in that conversation, but the rest of them are the old pro style offense. I just think Nebraska's a better fit in the Big 12. I think they're uncomfortable in the Big Ten. It wouldn't break my heart to see them out of the Big Ten. But that way, it breaks my heart not to see them play football this year. That
Right.
I think you're seeing, when you see 17,000 people in the fans in the NFL game last night, you see Marshall last week on TV with fans in the stands having a beer, eating a hot dog, a nice crisp fall day, enjoying a college football game. It's just hard to imagine that, the politics have crept into this, and no matter what side of the fence you're on with the COVID scare, and it's obviously a legitimate concern. But, they tested over 64,500 tests so far in the NFL. 5 have come back positive with nobody in mortal danger. So you have that argument, but to answer your question, that was a long answer. I don't like them in the Big Ten. I hope they leave.
Yeah.
Hell, what I'd like to see? I'd like to see him land in Conference USA so he can win a conference title. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah. My guess is that Big Ten football is definitely going to happen, but I think it's going to happen around Thanksgiving. That's my guess. Now that it's just going to look, and what they can save face, and they can say that we were extra cautious, and we're gonna have really good, safe checks in tow, and we're gonna have good benchmarks and all that stuff. But I think it's gonna happen. There's too much money to be made, and when everybody else is doing it, and I heard Utah furloughed half of their athletic department or something. So people are really losing money. So I can see it happening.
Yeah. Before we close out the show, a couple of things. We'd be remiss in our duties if we did not hit Monday Night Football real quick, and I'll leave the early game alone. I want your thoughts on this reaction. You've got Tennessee on the road, who lost to Kansas City last year in the AFC Championship, who beat a very good Baltimore team, going on the road at Mile High to play Denver. Denver still breaking in Drew Lock. Lost one of the best defensive players not on the team, in the entire NFL, in Von Miller. And when that happened, this line still didn't move. You've got Tennessee on the road right now on Monday Night Football, in the altitude, I might add, early in the season where teams are not in game shape. This opened up at 1.5. Now it's at 2.5. No wavering in terms of shooting way up with the loss of Von Miller. Your thoughts on this game, Arun?
It's interesting because Denver closed out last year really strong. They beat the Chargers by 3. They beat Houston by 14 on the road. They lost to Kansas City by 20, but who isn't losing to Kansas City these days? They beat Detroit by 10 and they beat Vegas by 1. They were actually one of the best covers. They were 6-2 to close out, I think, their last, or 6-3 ATS to close out their last 9. But you have a Tennessee team that lost to them last year 16-0. So I can't imagine
Yeah.
like they're looking ahead because they got thumped by them and didn't score any points on them. And you also have this team that was so close against Kansas City too, and they have a pretty hard schedule this year. So Tennessee has to win the games that they're supposed to win. I hate taking favorites on Monday Night Football. The other thing interesting is the public is all over the under, which is interesting because that doesn't usually happen. Usually the public obviously takes the favorite and the over on any public game, on any weeknight game. I think Tennessee wins, but I think it's probably going to be a higher scoring game than people think. This is very similar to that Atlanta-Seattle game. I think Atlanta being an active dog, I think Denver will be an active dog. I think Denver will surprise folks. But if I had to take something, I'd probably take the over. It's kind of an indirect play on Denver showing up, but I can't bring myself to take Denver over Tennessee. So, yeah, I would lean on the
Well,
over.
bear in mind too, there's been a lot of talk about Drew Lock, and I watched him play when I lived in Kansas City. He was quarterback in Missouri. I watched him play in high school at Lee Summit West when I lived in Kansas City. He was a man amongst boys in high school. He set, I think, 19 or 20 SEC records, so he does not come without merit. He's a good quarterback, but the numbers that he racked up towards the end of the last season, which everybody was getting excited about, there was no pass defense that he threw against that was rated lower than 25th in the league. So bear that in mind when you get real excited about Drew Lock. Just a word to the wise, folks. We're going to do this show on Tony's Time every Friday. But what I do want to mention, there's another huge event going on this weekend. And Arun is one of the best tennis handicappers in the entire country. And I know you got some U.S. Open tennis coming for everybody this weekend. Your thoughts on the big loss with Serena Williams? A little bit of a head scratcher for me. I thought maybe she'd get over, especially the way she played the first set. She just blistered this gal, and then just all of a sudden it just flip-flopped on her.
Yeah, so I play tennis semi-professionally. So I've been playing tennis, for 20 plus years. And I was the city champ. I used to be ranked within the semi-pro tennis folks, the circuit here. And the thing about Victoria Azarenka is it's like AJ Green that we talked about. She was coming off an injury, so she came in unseeded, but she's a former basically number 1 player. And Serena's always struggled against her in general. It's the first time in a long, long time that Serena was an underdog going in. She was +1 going in against Victoria. So that kind of said something there. And I'm sure, Vegas probably cleaned up. Serena, semifinals, U.S. Open, not much on TV.
Yeah.
Everybody's probably going to be betting on her. So they probably cleaned up. I think that, the thing about Serena is if you notice that she's been dropping a lot of sets, and she's 38, man, and Victoria's 31 or 30. So the fact that she's playing at this high of a level at this age is pretty incredible. And this isn't like, a quarterback like Breeze or Brady at 41 or 43. You are running hard in tennis, and you're going side to side. You're going horizontal and vertical, and you're just running like crazy. Whereas, if you add up the amount of steps you actually play in football as a quarterback, it's probably not a lot. It's a drop back. Maybe you run, maybe you throw it away. But in tennis, you're running like crazy. So for those in tennis, I could see how Serena lost. I don't think Serena will win another major, actually. So I think she's one of the greatest, if not the greatest. But I don't see her ever winning another major because the amount of toll it takes on your body is just too much. I think she'll make it to a lot of Final Fours, a lot of semis, but I don't see her winning another title again. Jen Brady is a great player who played Naomi Osaka. She's going to be an American to watch in the future. I think Naomi Osaka is going to win this whole thing. Osaka plays Victoria Azarenka. She's a 3-game favorite, and I think she's going to get it done. She lost to her last time around, but I don't think she's going to lose to her this time around. She lost to Jen Brady last time. Osaka is undefeated when she has revenge on an opponent. So I don't see her losing to Azarenka. And as far as the men is concerned, Dominic Thiem is like lights out. and that's why he's a pick 'em against Medvedev. So
Yeah.
I can see team lost in the Cincinnati Masters. He got trucked. He lost like in the first round. So I think he's used, but the winner in the U.S. Open gets paid very handsomely. Even if you make it to the fourth round, like Djokovic did, he would have gotten paid 250,000 for just losing in the fourth round. But then he obviously accidentally hit someone in the throat, which is ridiculous, by the way. I don't even know why we have line judges. Are you trying to like spur the economy? This guy's the number one ranked guy in the world. You're going to kick him out, and then you're going to have this Hawkeye. Just get rid of all the line judges. Why do you even have line judges? Just go digital.
I agree. Well, anyway, folks, you be sure and check if you want some tennis action, football, whatever kind of action, a good WNBA capper as well. He's going to join me every Friday. We're going to preview the upcoming weekend in the NFL. We're able to talk about the Thursday night game on Friday mornings. It kind of sets the tone for the week as well. And Arun Shiva there at DocSports.com. Arun, thanks for coming on, buddy. We appreciate it. Be sure to get over to Docs. Take advantage of that free $60 this weekend. Get hooked up. And by the way, just so you know, your point on A.J. Green before I close the show, on my fantasy team, I was able to pick him up in the fourth round. Nobody wanted him. So guess what?
Really good.
Yeah. So
that's good.
Nonetheless, good luck with your betting this weekend, folks. Good luck with your fantasy. And get over to Docs and get yourself some winners this weekend. Thanks for tuning in.